We're good? Thank you. This meeting is being held in person and electronically in accordance with the Municipal Act. And just wanted to note before we get started, for those who may be wondering, please be advised that the public meeting regarding the city-initiated amendment to the official plan of 2051 has been rescheduled for this for a later date. So tonight, there is one public meeting to be held. If you are joining the meeting virtually and have not yet registered and wish to speak, please email cityclerks@barrie.ca and staff will email you the information to participate virtually. This public meeting is to review an application submitted by Innovative Planning Solutions, IPS, on behalf of DBZ Young Limited for a zoning bylaw amendment to permit a 6-story mixed-use development with 233 residential units and 6 commercial units on lands known municipally as 461, 463, 465, 467, 471, and 473 Yonge Street. Members of the public will be listening to the presentations, and comments received during the public meeting will not be making comments or debating the items tonight. Committee members will have the opportunity to provide comments when the staff report is considered by General Committee at a later date. Interested persons wishing notification of the staff report can sign the notification form at the back of the council chambers or by email at cityclerks@barrie.ca. Michelle Bamfield, Executive Director of Development Services, would you please confirm that the notification was conducted in accordance with the Planning Act for tonight's public meeting?
Yes, Chair Harris, it was.
Thank you. Now, I believe we're ready, IT, we're ready for the first presentation material. So I will now call upon Daphne Goxon, hope I said that half decently okay, Senior Planner of Innovative Planning Solutions, to provide the presentation concerning the application for the zoning bylaw amendment known as, formerly as 461, 463, 465, 467, 471, and 473 Yonge Street, Barrie.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Red mic on, green mic off. That is a little confusing. So yes, good evening. As was mentioned, my name is Daphne Goxon. I'm a senior planner at Innovative Planning Solutions, and I'm here tonight for this application for a zoning bylaw amendment for 461 to 473 Yonge Street. So this is the location of the project site. It's combined, it's about 6,700 square meters of area with about 110 meters of frontage on Yonge Street and 61 meters along McMillan Crescent. And there's currently 6 single-family detached dwellings on the properties. The developer is someone you may be familiar with, Midnight Enterprises. They also were the developer behind the 2 6-story apartment buildings on Big Bay Point that were approved earlier this year by council. They did start as a custom home builder, but they've been expanding into rental developments and have a huge investment in Barrie and rental developments, you are probably aware. So this is sort of a rough map showing the surrounding area and the surrounding uses. Yonge Street is an intensification corridor, and there's a number of new developments that have already been approved in the area, which are the D1 through 4 in red on this map. So just want to highlight as well D2 and D3, which are close to the site, were approved for 7-story condominiums with ground floor commercial. And then there's also been some 4-story approvals as well. The area has a lot of mix of uses, including existing commercial plazas and townhouse developments. So the current official plan designation is neighborhood area, and the zoning is the R1 zoning. So the official plan does allow up to 8 stories since Yonge Street is an intensification corridor. However, the zoning currently only allows single-family detached homes. So zoning bylaw amendment is required in order to build anything else. So this is a slide showing the site plan and the development concept. So it is another proposal for a 6-story purpose-built rental apartment, but unlike Big Bay, this will have the ground floor commercial mixed use as is required along Yonge Street. It's a total of 233 units, and again, like Big Bay, 10% of those units would be affordable units. There's both car and bicycle parking proposed, including parking for the retail units. And the entrance to the site is off McMillan Crescent to access the surface parking area and also underground parking. This is a conceptual rendering of the plan, just the view from Yonge Street. It's conceptual at this point. Obviously, detailed design is where we'll get into more details, but you have an idea of what it will look like. I wanted to highlight as well the angular plane. We did have a neighborhood meeting, and there were a lot of concerns from the residents to the rear of the site. So this project has been designed to abide by all angular plane requirements. The requirement is a 45-degree angular plane above 7.5 meters, using at least 3-meter step backs. It's hard to see on this, but the 7.5 meters starts actually below where the ground floor of the building is because of a slope in the rear of the site. So that 7.5 meters starts at the lowest point along the adjoining lot line. So it really is respectful of the existing topography and the neighbors to the rear. Also just wanted to highlight the shadow studies. That was another concern from the neighborhood meeting. This is a June 21st shadow study, so the first day of summer. And you can see the shadow impacts are almost negligible. Really, it's not until the very last time of the night that you're starting to get shadow impacts on the surrounding residents. And then this is September 21st, so the last day of summer. For most of the day, there's no shadow impacts. There are some in the late afternoon and evening on the surrounding residential properties. So we're here today for the requested zoning bylaw amendment. So as previously mentioned, it's currently zoned for R1, and we're requesting the MU2 zone, which is the same zone that was approved on the other properties along Yonge Street that have already been approved for development. Sorry, this is a very busy slide I'm seeing now. These are the site-specific provisions that we're requesting. So there's 5 site-specific provisions. I'll just go through those right now. First of all, we're requesting for the front lot line to be Yonge Street. Just per the definition, the shorter lot line is considered the front lot line, which would be McMillan. So we're requesting for it to be Yonge Street. Project's designed to front on Yonge Street. It just makes more sense for the arterial to be the front lot line. We're actually requesting an increase in the interior side yard setback. There's a maximum of 3 meters, and we'd like to provide a little bit more. There's an existing building that will remain. It's a multifamily building on Yonge Street, so we're just proposing a slightly larger setback from that building of 4.5 meters. We're also requesting slightly less commercial floor area than what's required. 50% is what's required, and we're proposing about just over 30%. We've had discussions with staff before making this submission. The retail will be all along the Yonge Street frontage, but we didn't feel that it was appropriate to have the commercial along the side street and along the interior lot line and in the rear of the property. So that's where we came up with that percentage, is so that we have that pedestrian corridor along Yonge Street with the retail to make it walkable, but the side streets would just have residential units. Next, the parking is proposed at a reduced rate. The commercial parking, we're meeting the requirement. It's the residential parking where it's a reduced rate. Given the nature of the building as purpose-built rental with affordable units, we are proposing for those units to have a slightly lower ratio. Currently, zoning would require 1 space per unit. The draft bylaw for intensification corridors is 0.8. We're proposing 0.69, so it is a little bit lower, but again, given the affordable units and the rental units, we feel that that's an appropriate ratio. We do have a parking assessment as part of our traffic study, which provided some justification. There is regular bus service directly in front of the property. There are many amenities in the area, so a lot of tasks can be accomplished on foot. And then Yonge Street is also planned as a cycling corridor, and we are providing 216 bicycle parking spaces so that residents could use a bike instead of a car. And then finally, the minimum drive aisle width, we're proposing 6 meters instead of 6.4 meters. Again, the draft bylaw has 6 meters as the drive aisle width, so it's in conformity with what's sort of being proposed for the city. So this slide has a list of all the required studies and reports that were submitted with the application. These have all been circulated for comment to different cities, departments, and agencies, and we're awaiting those comments, and we'll address them with our next submission in addition to any comments that we received today. So just sort of in conclusion, from a policy context, we feel that the proposed development makes use of underutilized lands in a built-up area along an arterial road and an intensification corridor. The development would be pedestrian-friendly and transit-supportive and will help the city meet intensification targets, and will also help the city meet its purpose-built rental targets by providing 233 new rental units with 10% affordables, again, helping with the affordability requirements. So yeah, this is just the concluding slide here with that conceptual rendering again, and yeah, it's available if you have any questions.
Great, thank you. I will now call upon Daniel Francioni, planner from the Development Services Department, to provide an update on the status of the application.
Good evening, Chair Harris and members of the Affordability Committee. Planning staff are currently reviewing the submitted zoning bylaw amendment application. A neighborhood meeting was held on October 7th, 2024, with approximately 40 attendees, including Ward 8 Councillor Jim Harris, city planning staff, and the applicant's consultants. Some items raised during this meeting include shadow impacts and privacy for surrounding residents, and impacts on traffic and parking on the immediate community. Staff are currently reviewing the application. The primary planning and land use matters being considered include compliance with provincial planning policy and the city's official plan, appropriateness of the requested site-specific provisions to the city's zoning bylaw to accommodate this proposed development, compatibility with surrounding land uses, including transition to the existing low-rise neighborhood, and anticipated development along the Yonge Street corridor. Ensuring that the proposal meets the operational standards of all city departments and traffic and parking impacts, pedestrian circulation, and site design. Staff will continue to work with the applicant and members of the public to address any feedback received through the public consultation process, as well as those comments raised through the technical review. This review may result in revisions or updates to the plans and reports submitted in support of this application. All submission materials and key dates associated with the application, along with my contact info, are available for viewing on the city's proposed developments webpage under Ward 8. A staff report is anticipated to be brought forward in the fourth quarter of 2025 for General Committee's consideration of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. Thank you. I'm happy to address any questions at this time or following comments from the public.
Great, and thank you. Now, I believe we may have someone pre-registered who wishes to speak virtually. Is that person, Ms. Cook, is that person with us?
No, they are not.
Okay. So I will now, if there are members of the public who wish to provide comments who are here, please approach the podium, but begin by stating your first and last name and address for the record. So I see nobody. So there's nobody online waiting, and we have nobody in person. So we will go to next. It's now the ward councillor, who happens to be me, for questions of clarification. So I will order my questions. So first, maybe first to begin with, and again, I apologize. Am I saying your name correctly, Miss Goxon? Is that? Okay, thank you. It's interesting. I was curious about a couple of the requests, and I know you've probably seen some of the questions of the correspondence from some residents, and a couple couldn't be here tonight, so I'm trying to respectfully ask questions that were of interest to them, because they said they couldn't be here. As it relates to the parking, certainly parking, as you know, many places, including Barrie, and we actually currently have a parking strategy committee led by, thankfully, by Councillor Reitman, Deputy Mayor Thompson, that's actually tackling that right now. So I'm curious, with the parking ratio at 0.69 per unit, can you give us a little bit more detail? You talked a bit about generalities of how you got to that number. Can you give me a sense of given, I know, again, we're a community that's actually right now in the midst of wrestling with parking issues, how you got to that number?
Thank you for the question. You know, I don't know that I have an exact metric that was used. 0.8 was what was sort of started with, and then basically we took the affordable units sort of out of the equation, assumed that they would have no parking, and then you sort of get down to that 0.85 for the market rate units, which is what the draft bylaw would be for this area. Yeah, I don't have a strict calculation that was done.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Because I think that was one of the things I know, and on behalf of Mr. Stevenson, who wrote in, was looking at some of the statistics and data related to parking, and I don't know if there's you counted people who are in affordable as a zero. That's not based on data, it's based on an assumption that we'll count those as zero.
Correct, yes. So I know that his letter talked a lot about the commercial parking, so I wanted to clarify that the commercial parking is at 100% of what's
Right.
required.
Right.
But yeah, so the assumption is because these are rental units and they're fairly small, that the affordable units will have no parking demand. It's not anticipated to be, something where there'd be a large family in that unit, be like a single person who probably doesn't have a vehicle. The parking will also be unbundled from the rent, so you'll rent your unit and then you separately rent the parking, which is a good way to sort of just make sure that the actual number of stalls that are needed are used. Sometimes if the unit just comes with parking, people just have the spot, but they're not necessarily using it. Unfortunately, our traffic engineer, he tried to find comparable sites, but there really isn't anything. The only real comparable sites are not yet built in Barrie, right? They're under construction or they've been approved. It's mostly condominiums, which is a different demographic from a rental market. So it's sort of hard to say this is the building we looked at and this is how we came to it from a Barrie perspective.
Okay, thank you. And maybe I won't ask this question, but maybe you had referenced on slide 4 several examples on Yonge Street of similar type of development applications and some approved. Did you reference the parking ratio at those units as a comparable?
Again, those are all condominium projects, so I know they are at a higher parking ratio. I don't have the exact ratios in front of me right now, but I know that they are at a higher ratio, probably closer to 1 per unit. But those are condominiums, so it's a different sort of equation, right? If someone's buying a unit, they probably want to have a parking spot, even if they're just buying it as an investment, because it's harder to sell if there's not a parking spot, even if they don't need it. Whereas for a rental, it's a different decision from the people that they're marketing to.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it would be great. I hear probably it'd be nice to know this because, again, with our parking strategy, it'd be nice to know things like definitives about the likelihood of having a car if you're a renter in today's economy versus a condominium who may be an owner. But I know many condominiums that going down the road is often purchased to rent. So it's interesting. Maybe just one question for staff. So I'm curious. Maybe Ms. Banfield, what is the current lowest parking ratio to units that we've approved so far in the City of Barrie?
Thank you for the question, Chair Harris. So, the projects, I can just kind of jump in for the previous question about the projects along Yonge Street and what those parking ratios were. And as the consultant indicated, it was around the 1 parking space per unit. Around the downtown, some of the rates that we've gotten for parking has been down to about 0.8 units per parking spaces per unit. So we have dipped below that 1 per unit. Most often in those cases, though, it has been more in the downtown versus kind of some of the areas further afield. Okay,
thank you. And maybe follow this again to respect the interests of those who couldn't be here from my residents around that. So this would be a new record, I guess. A new record low ratio would be what's being proposed here. In how staff calculate recommendations or back to developers and council, what factors would be at play as we relate to this unit on Yonge Street versus those that would be downtown that have been in that 0.8, not quite 0.69, but 0.8 ratio?
Thank you for the question, Chair Harris. So fundamentally, most of the these types of equations are worked out through the studies that are submitted with the application, and it's a formula, if you will, that the applicant's consulting team comes up with and presents to get that ratio, and then our own transportation team take a look at that and accept or challenge some of the assumptions, if you will. So it usually is a bit of a back and forth. And in these multi-use buildings, it's not unusual to have, a parking ratio for the commercial and then potentially a parking ratio for affordable units versus, at market units. So we kind of put it all together, and then usually the parking ratio, whether it's less than one space per unit, we say it really kind of comes into effect when you actually apply for your building permit, because that's honestly where the parking check is. So practically speaking, when the building develops, everybody that has a parking or wants a parking space actually has one, but the rate is actually lower than one per unit when we're looking at it from that perspective.
Great, thank you. And back to you, Ms. Goxon. You mentioned about going back and forth with staff about the commercial ratio, and there's a 0.5, and
50% of the ground.
50%, pardon me, thank you. And then you're looking at about 30%. In looking at designing of the building and putting it where it is, knowing that the requirement is 50, what was the challenge to meet the 50 versus what's been proposed at the 30?
So the 30%, as I mentioned, covers the entire Yonge Street frontage. I think there's just a lobby area would be the only part of that frontage that's not. So the challenge would be we would then have retail units on McMillan or along the interior lot line or in the rear fronting the existing single families. We just didn't feel, first of all, that those were really appropriate places for retail, and second of all, there's concerns about the leasability of those spaces, that businesses would rather be on that Yonge Street frontage and not on the side street or in the rear. So just felt that from the perspective of just urban design, but also marketability, leasability, that was the most appropriate place, and it just 30% is sort of where it ended up.
Okay, thank you. And just curious, I mean, as far as the, looking at variances, is from your perspective as in developing and planning this, what is the value of having any commercial on the ground floor of this development? Is it a detriment to what you would do otherwise, or is it an attribute?
It could be either, right? I mean, the developers are residential developers, so they haven't really, they're not focused in on commercial real estate, but commercial, mixed-use buildings are very popular. They can be really successful when the businesses and the residents have like a good relationship and the residents are supporting the businesses. But I know that there's a lot of challenges in mixed-use buildings where it's a residential developer and they have a difficult time leasing the space. The city's goal with this, I assume, is to create a nice walkable corridor on Yonge Street, and you have those little shops. It makes it much more pleasant to walk. But the counter side is if it's vacant, then it has the opposite effect. Having those vacant storefronts would be better to have, a residential unit at least. So it's a balance, it's a challenge, and this is sort of where we ended up in talking with city staff about how many units made sense and what floor area made sense.
Thank you. And maybe one last question for Ms. Banfield. Again, it's through one of the queries from residents. Does the inclusion of the ground floor commercial provide any benefits such that it allows the building to be higher than otherwise if it wasn't there?
Through your chair, Harris, I believe that there is the ability to go higher if you do the ground floor area. I'm not sure, Carlissa. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Chair Harris, that's correct. So the mixed-use node or the mixed-use corridor zone does permit increased heights if there's ground floor commercial.
Thank you. And if in this zone, if I could follow up, if there wasn't the commercial, which we hear is kind of not necessarily a wonderful inclusion based on developer, what would that mean as far as available heights this could be approved at?
Thank you, Chair Harris. I believe it's a maximum of 5 stories, and then with ground floor commercial, they could go up to 8, based on the current mixed-use zoning. The OP, I think, identifies 6 stories along the intensification corridor in a neighborhood area.
Okay, great, thank you. So in one of the potential, I guess, the challenge around the sizing and the parking could be in the I guess in the offing would be the solutions could be around the commercial or not. Anyway, those are all the questions I have. So sorry, I will stop myself there before somebody else asks me to stop. So anyway, thank you. And with that said, if anyone has any further written comments, you can submit them to Daniel Frangioni in the Development Services Department at daniel.frangioni@barrie.ca. With that completed, it takes us to reports of advisory committees. There is one advisory committee report to be received, and it is item 6.1, the report of the Barrie Heritage Committee dated June 24th, 2025.
So moved.
And that takes us to adjournment. This concludes the affordability meeting. Thank you.